What is up, YouTube? My name is G3 Iron, and today we are continuing our series of Let's Run 100 Maps. Today we're showing off 100 museum maps. Of course, I always appreciate your feedback. We are running these 100 maps because you bunch of masochists voted for us through the straw poll that we put up to run 100 maps. So thank you to everyone who voted on the poll, but unthank you because you picked this layout. But I guess unthank me because I put it out there on the poll. So I guess I'm the true dum-dum here. Big shout out to my buddy Rich Cat Support. Thank you so much, Rich Cat, for running all 100 of these maps with me. I'm not sure how either of us are still sane, but nonetheless, we made it back out on the other side. We didn't do any side areas except for abyssal depths, so we didn't do any additional masters missions which would have required us to leave the area, i.e. Zana. We stayed inside the map for the most part. There was one abyssal depths that we bumped into. We just alked and used one fragment, one sacrifice fragment, in order to boost the item quantity up by an additional 5%. That was our crafting strategy for these 100 maps. The layout of this map did indeed prove to be a challenge. We'll get more into that throughout the video. But again, shout out to Rich Cat. Showing off our couple of characters here. Of course, this is my Deadeye Wind Ripper that's linked down below. And I'm also today going to link for you Rich Cat's character. You can see, of course, displayed right next to me here a little bit of info about the increased item quantity that we're getting. Of course, as being a Wind Ripper, you want to freeze as many enemies as possible, and then I'm using Abyssco's Leash, so we want to kill as many normal enemies as possible, and then with Divination Distillate, spamming as much mana as possible, we get up to 140, and I just wanted to show this off of Rich Cat's build. Mwah! This beautiful Impresence that's got Frostbite having 100% reduced mana reservation on it. It was glorious for getting all of the wonderful freeze explosions and additional quantity that we got to pick up because of Rich Cat playing this particular support. So you can always go out and check out his character. His character is also linked down below. So we discovered that this is a terrible, terrible layout. It's terrible to maintain Rampage. It's terrible to maintain sanity or clarity or even a given particular path of running through it. But as I said earlier, we'll get to the strategy that we came up with. It's not perfect. It is something. That's what it is. It's something. It's at least, if you're crazy enough that you want to go run a bunch of museum maps because maybe you want to farm Dab of Ink to try and get a Poet's Pen, which we'll show you how many of those we got here in a second. But if you would like to do it, it's at least a strategy. It's something. So I've put together on Imgur, of course, all this is linked down below as well. Some photos of what all of the loot looks like. Yes, I did make this meme because when we finished this, the number of memes that I just had to instantly go make. I mean, I made the Boromir meme, like one does not simply do 100 museum maps. I made the Change My Mind meme, that it's just the worst layout in all of PoE. I did the Frodo meme where when we finish, where it's like, it's over, it's done. But anyway, so here was one stash tab, one regular stash tab filled with stuff for dumping. Here's another filled with maps for dumping. And then, of course, our times. And this is what everything looked like once we got it sorted. Here are the cards. I'm not sure why, but on my super strict filter, these claws came up. They both were tier 1 rolls, so that's probably why they came up just naturally. And then, of course, we got the one Stygian Vise from the one Abyssal Depths. This is what all the currency looked like. You will note we did hit an Exalt. That Exalt came in the first 5 maps that we ran. Like, as soon as we got started, it was just like, boom, Exalt. So that was great. That was fun. And then we didn't see another one for 95 more maps. So yeah, this is what the essences, jewels, and other miscellaneous stuff looks like all sorted. And this is what the maps look like all sorted. So we're going to get into a breakdown really quickly on the values of all of this stuff. So the quantity of all of this stuff is shown here on this spreadsheet, which is, of course, also linked down below. Total number of map types that we got 60 different types of maps that dropped for us, which was pretty great. The total number of Atlas completion that I'm sitting at, we're running off of my Atlas, which is 141 out of 159. So we got 60 different types of maps. You'll see that the most that we got was Coral Ruins, which is a tier 10. We got 14 of those. Then we also got a whole bunch of, mineral pools, and then a whole bunch of arena maps, 7 of those and 8 of the mineral pools. And you'll notice I've divided this up into average price as well as total price. So you can see, obviously, corals are a little bit lower in terms of average than plateau, but the total value is going to be higher simply because we had more of them. So plateaus being worth about 0.1 chaos more than corals. But nonetheless, you get a bunch of maps. I will say that. Those of you, again, that are having trouble sustaining your atlas, you need to get completions on your atlas. If you're having trouble getting those completions on your atlas, join a group. If you've got questions about what map looting and XP and joining a group for leeching XP and leeching completions looks like, we've got a video on that. That, of course, I'll link down below. But, of course, always, if you're the DPS in the group, at least my philosophy is to host it on your atlas, because then you can control whether or not things are influenced by Shaper, things are influenced by Elder. I always want to do these runs of these Let's Run 100 maps without Shaper or Elder influence, just so that way we can have consistency. That way there's not inconsistency where we've got a batch of maps that are coming back with Elder and a batch of maps that are coming back with Shaper and then a batch of maps that have just got nothing on it. So that's my philosophy, at least. By hosting the party, you get to control everything off of your atlas. But if you need those completions, there's no harm in going on to somebody else's atlas. I was just chatting with a new guild member today who didn't realize that you got completions when somebody else kills a boss and completes the map. If it's on their atlas, you do get those completions, so it's definitely worth it. So the total value of maps, was it worth it to pick up maps? Well, total value of maps that we picked up was 152 chaos. So that's a decent chunk of change when you consider that we spent about 317 C on the total investment between alks, between fragments, and between purchasing all 100 of these museum maps. So that's about half of our investment back. Talking about the currency that we picked up, pure currency, we picked up 659 total pure currency. Now, you'll notice at the time of this particular video, and I'm dating this as the time of this video, Exalted Orbs are valued at about 184. I believe that crash is coming soon, whenever that next bot ban wave is coming. And then, of course, Exalted prices will drop. That may happen this weekend. It may not happen for another few weeks, but it will happen. And when it does happen, of course, the prices will change. So if we didn't find that Exalted Orb in the first 5 maps, then the whole rest of our calculations do get thrown off by quite a bit, because that's 184 chaos. But even if we remove 184 chaos, we've still got just under 500 chaos in terms of total flat currency that we were able to pick up. Jeweler's Orbs, of course, are the second highest valued currency that we picked up, and a bunch of those, of course, are coming through the 6-socket recipe. Not the 6-link, but the 6-socket recipe. You'll also note that we did find 2 divines, and then I believe we also found... We might not have found an Orb of Annulment in this particular run. Let's actually find that out really quick. I don't think we did not find an Orb of Annulment. So Divines and Exalteds both roll off of the same tier when something drops. So those 2 Divines could have been another 2x, or that 1x could have been another Divine. I just say that just to let you know. Those are some of the numbers that can exchange with one another as you are farming. And so that's going to be, again, a big difference in the results of your maps. We did bump into quite a few different breaches. I believe we had 5 breaches, which was more than we had on arcades earlier in the league in our last video. And we did bump into a Tull, so that was fun. We actually got to fight a Tull and kill him, and he dropped a bunch of fragments for us, a bunch of splinters for us to pick up, and then, of course, either run for ourselves or sell for profit. Cards, those of you that are wondering, hey, how profitable is it to solo self-found? How many maps is it going to take to solo self-found Poet's Pens? Well, if you have the same luck as us, so we found 5 dabs of ink. That's what we found. 5 of them. You need 9 of them in order to get 1 Poet's Pen. So if you're going up for a Poet's Pen build, Museum might not be the best place. You could just say we had terrible luck. Maybe you've had better luck. Leave us a comment down below and let us know if you've had better luck finding dabs of ink. And caveat here, on our second to last map, 2 dabs of ink dropped in the same map. So if we did not run, if we ran 98 maps and it was just those, like it was on the 99th map that we got 2 dabs of ink. If we just ran 98 maps, we would have had 3 dabs of ink, and the ratios would have been totally different. So on this ratio right here, it's about 200 museum maps that you'd need to run to solo self-found farm 1 set for 1 Poet's Pen. So if you wanted to farm 2 in order to be able to dual wield and have the perfect Poet's Pen set up, you'd need to farm 400 museum maps. Of course, that's if everything remains consistent across the board. The total value of currency, of value for the cards that we picked up was about 122 chaos. So again, quite valuable. And when you look at the number of clicks that it takes between the value of picking up pure currency, of course, a lot of these, literally hundreds of these clicks are counted into the Jeweler's Orb and the Jeweler's Orb recipe. So let's say if we took away 500 clicks there, that's still 1,000 clicks for just over 650 chaos value. Whereas when you look at the total value of picking up divination cards, 66 different clicks for over 100 in terms of chaos value. So, you know, cards are simply a lot more valuable per click than even pure currency is, and especially if you take out that Exalted Orb. So I would say one of the biggest things that I learned, besides that museum layout is terrible, is that, of course, divination cards are simply very, very valuable. And sometimes as the league progresses, you'll want to continue to stack up your strictness on your loot filter, because the longer you get into the league, the more chance there will be consistency in the divination cards that you collect holding value, as opposed to the currency that you are collecting holding value, especially low-end currency. A lot of the time it's simply not worth it. Like, for instance, look at this. We picked up 92 orbs of alterations. That's only 9 chaos in terms of value, whereas we picked up 15 shards of fate, and that's roughly 6 chaos in terms of value. So again, like, when you're starting to balance out the scales and the number of clicks that you're having to do, we did 92 clicks for 9C. That's a lot. Whew! So generally speaking, man, cards are just way, way better. And so if you can stack your ability to get cards, it's way, way better even than pure currency drops in the game. All right, lastly, miscellaneous junk. We picked up 21 different types of miscellaneous junk. Of course, some of those are essences, and it totaled out to be 11 chaos in terms of value. So not even that great in terms of total value. The Mapwatch data, I pulled all of this, of course, from the wonderful website Mapwatch. It is a beautiful, beautiful website that tracks everything for you, and I took a quick snapshot photo so that way everybody could see. This was the average time per map. Average time per map was 4 minutes and 15 seconds. We spent roughly 3 minutes in the map and roughly 1 minute in town, with roughly, on average, 2 seconds insides. The total time that you can see was about 3 minutes and 50 seconds, because we really only went into the one side area, which was the Abyssal Depths, the one Abyssal Depths that we did. And then the total time for this was 7 hours, 6 minutes, and 37 seconds. Again, shout out to Rich Cat. Thanks so much for doing this with me for 7 hours, because that was nuts. But even if you were only with me for the mapping section, still 5 hours is a lot of time to spend just, party mapping with somebody. So again, thanks and shout out to Rich Cat. So that was the time investment that it took us. I do like to show the time investment for those of you that wonder, oh, maybe I don't have a bunch of time to play Path of Exile, or as much time as I'd like to play. If you simply dedicate yourself to farming and target farming an area, you are going to get returns, and we just went over those returns. Now you might be wondering, yeah, but Iron, it didn't really seem like it was all that profitable. You're complaining a lot about the layout. Well, let's get to the profitability. So when you take all of these different factors into account, how much C we spent invested? We spent 317 C total as the investment. So our map returns were about 152 chaos for the estimated value. Our currency was 659. Our cards was 122, and our miscellaneous was 11. So the total estimated value was 945 chaos, which when you subtract 317 chaos for our total invested for purchasing maps, for purchasing alks, for purchasing sacrifice fragments, the profit still comes out to over 600 chaos. Now, when you result that and you divide it by the hours that we spent, it's not that great, right? Because if you say, hey, this was a project that took 7 hours, you made less than 700 chaos, therefore you made less than 100 C an hour. Then on top of that, if you take our luck of pulling the Exalted out, you say, man, we made way less than 100 C an hour. If you're a little bit faster than we are and you're on a better layout, which I think Museum is the worst layout conceivable in the game, and we'll get to that here next. But before I get into that, if you take out the fact that this is the worst layout, then you're actually going to have a lot better returns, because you're going to run your maps a lot faster, the density is going to be a lot faster, and you're going to spend a lot less time running between pack to pack and a lot more time actually picking up things that are valuable, as opposed to spending time simply running around and clearing areas that might not even have enemies in them. Oh my goodness. Okay, so let's get into it. Let me show you off right here with our quick, the help of paint, the modern technology of paint really quickly here. This was my concept map that I drew for us as we were getting ready to do layouts. And Rich Cat said multiple times as we were running layouts, man, this is just tough to get a hang on the layout structure of museum. And I totally agree. It is tough to get a hang on for this particular map. That being said, there is a general pattern of the museum map, and that is to say, when you start the map, when the map first begins, very first thing that you do, you will start and there will be a split. It can be that you start on the left, it can be that you start on the right, doesn't matter, there will be a split. One of those splits, in general, we did bump into a couple of maps that didn't do this, but in general, the vast majority of these maps, I would say 85 plus, split into a simple fork, choosing right or choosing left. One of those ways is going to be a short end fork, and I'm going to show you that right here. This side in our diagram is our short end fork. So what I mean by that is it's simply a dead end. You're going to want to run a one. Wow, try saying that 10 times fast. You're going to want to run to that dead end as quickly as you can, kill everything, and then run back, because once you know that's the dead end, you want to go for as much as you can continuously throughout the rest of the map, especially if you're taking advantage of mechanics like Rampage, where you want to be killing stuff all the time. So once you find that dead end side, then you want to progress as much as you possibly can, rushing throughout the rest of the map. Now, the problem, of course, with this strategy of rushing throughout the rest of the map is that the rest of the map in Museum is garbage, and that there can be side areas that end up being dead ends, and so you end up running in, you're trying to hug the wall, right? The theory, hug the wall, so that way you're always catching everything and then making concentric circles into the middle to kill mobs. That theory does not work on a macro level for running in concentric circles, because Museum isn't always circular. And it doesn't work even sometimes inside rooms, because sometimes mobs aren't around the outside and sometimes they're not in the inside. So sometimes if you run around the outside of the particular room, you won't hit anything because everything's in the middle, and maybe there's even a gap that you'll miss them. If you run to the middle, sometimes there will be stuff that's like in a little tiny corner, and hey, there's a little rare pack of guys over here. So those of you that are complaining about Museum's map layout, I'm going to join in this time. I'm going to go full Kermit meme voice. Guys, I think that the museum map, it's terrible. Yes, it's terrible. It's disgusting. It's gross. We did it 100 times, so that way hopefully some of you would be smart enough to never do it yourself except for completions. The packs that come in at these big open areas, oftentimes they're around on the corners, but sometimes they're in the middle. Like, I really tried to say, oh man, maybe we can find a pattern here. Sometimes these little alcoves that are off on the side, sometimes they'll have a pack, but guess what, guys? Sometimes you'll run into that little alcove and there's nothing there. Sometimes you'll run all the way across to like a really, really long dead end, and maybe there's a sulfite node for Nico, or maybe there's a breach like all the way here in a corner. And then you're like, hey, this is great, right? Because the breach is going to expand. Sure, it's going to expand, but as the breach expands, it expands, and you'll notice it's like getting half of the breach's value because the other half is just off in space. So you're just sitting there like, hey, man, I want a breach, and that purple side of the breach just doesn't care about you because it doesn't exist. You can't access it. So then you're caught running between multiple different dead-end rooms to try and kill stuff. Oh, then you're done with the breach, right? And so you're like, all right, I'm going to keep going. All right, so then you run back to the main hallway, and you're like, hey, this is the main hallway, right? Nope, just kidding, because it was a dead end. And that dead end leads to the arena. And by the way, the room, this is one consistency. A single consistency from museum tier maps. Here's the secret. The room that has the candlestick that gets to the arena never has a pack in it. Ever. So guess how many times Rich Cat and I would run into that room thinking, oh, here's a dead end room, or maybe it's not a dead end room, maybe it leads to another room. Oh, there's no pack in here. Oh, but you know, the other frustrating thing is there's a lot of times where you'll run into a room and there's not a pack, but you know what there is? What there is, oh no, another room! So you'll actually have to run through it, run to the edge of the room, double check that there's not a doorway, because if there is a doorway, maybe there's a pack on the other side of that doorway. And that pack that's there is going to, of course, be on the opposite side of a dead end that you've then got to exit and run all the way back out at to get to the other side. And oh, by the way, just in case you were wondering, we did clear all 100 of these museum maps down to sub 50 monsters. Which means if we missed a pack in one of these stupid side areas that we simply ran through and didn't see, yep, we backtracked all the way back. Oh, still saying Exiles? Please, for the love of anything, your own time, your own sanity, we ran 100 of these maps so you wouldn't have to. Oh my gosh, I'm so glad that's done. So with all that being said, thank you so much for watching. I hope today is the day Amir of Galandra drops for you. We've got 100 more maps that we're going to run. I'd love your feedback and your input on which maps we should run next. Shrine, Precinct, Ivory Temple, or Atoll. There's a mix there of some mid-tier, high-tier, and low-tier maps. So, of course, that Strawpoll is linked down below. Let us know what maps we should run next. I am so glad this project is over. It's finally done. We made chaos, but we didn't really make progress in life. Oh my gosh. Done. My name's G3 Iron. Do you have a loved one or a friend that wants to run 100 museum maps? Well, we here at the Foundation for a Better Wraeclast have a message for you. Just stop. Just stop. Get them help. Call our 1-800 helpline. If at any point in time you or a family member have got any kind of inkling or itch to run 100 museum maps, please, please don't. Spare yourself, your friends, and your family members. Thank you so much for your time today. This advertisement was paid for from the Foundation for a Better Wraeclast.